191, N2 to N3 assessed by the Department of Higher Education and Training. General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Basic Education and Training, GETC ABET, assessed by the Department of Higher Education and Training, the Independent Examinations Board, and the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. Before I get into the business of the day, let me use the opportunity to announce with great sadness the passing away of 4 colleagues who were giants in their own right in the assessment and quality assurance system of our country, South Africa. They are Dr. Fred Kalitz, who served as the Executive Officer of the South African Certification Council, which was the forerunner to Umalusi. Prof. Kalitz passed away on 20 October 2023. Dr. Morgan Naidu, who served as a member of the Assessment Standards Committee of Council during 2018 to 2022, passed away on 1 December 2023. Professor Peliwe Lolwana, the founding Chief Executive Officer of Umalusi, passed away on the 17th of December 2023. Professor Sichaba Mahlomahulu, former member of Umalusi Council and the Umalusi Research Forum, who passed away this past Saturday, 13 January 2023. May their souls rest in peace. Another matter worth mentioning is that this is the last media briefing for Marie-Louise Madalani, Senior Manager for Quality Assurance of Assessment, School Qualifications. She will be going on retirement in May 2024. We thank Marie-Louise Madalani for the contribution that she has made to Umalusi in the various roles that she played over the years, 19 years to be specific. Program Director, I find it necessary to provide the public with an update on the progress made in connection with the problem of selling and buying of fake and or fraudulent certificates. Something that was covered widely in the media over the last 6 months. Since the State of Readiness media briefing held on 13 October 2023, during which we, amongst others, informed the public about the safeguards implemented to ensure the authenticity to ensure that the scammers or fraudsters are made to face the full might of the law. Umalusi would like to reassure the members of the public that its certificates have robust safeguards to protect the authenticity and credibility. Let me make it crystal clear that the mandate of Umalusi is to issue authentic certificates to qualifying candidates. Umalusi has got no business with fake certificates. Fake certificates, colleagues, are issued by scammers or fraudsters who are not employees of Umalusi. We advise all employers, both in the public and private sectors, to consider verifying their current and future employees' qualifications through the verification agencies whose contact details are available on the website of Umalusi, www.umalusi.org.za. On the landing page, you simply click on the certification and verification icon. Returning to the business of today, on 13 October 2023, we declared publicly that the public and private assessment bodies were ready to conduct, administer, and manage the 2023 end-of-year national examinations. We gave a full account with reasoning in terms of how Umalusi arrived at the overall conclusion that the system was ready. We are here today, as I've said already, to make a pronouncement on the outcome of Umalusi's quality assurance processes for the 2023 national examination results of both the public and private assessment bodies. The pronouncement is based on the outcomes of the quality assurance processes that Umalusi conducted during the examination writing and marking processes between October and December 2023. Umalusi draws its mandate in relation to quality assurance of exit level national examinations from the General and Further Education and Training Quality Assurance Act 58 of 2001 as amended in 2008. The Act confers a range of powers and functions on Umalusi in respect of all the qualifications on the sub-framework of qualifications NQF levels 1 to 4. Those functions include the external moderation of assessments and examinations conducted by all public and private Umalusi accredited assessment bodies, and standardizing examinations marks during the standardization process. Accordingly, Umalusi, my apologies for that. Accordingly, Umalusi had, prior to the commencement of the examinations, externally moderated and approved question papers, practical assessment tasks, school-based assessment tasks, site-based assessment, common assessment tasks, and portfolios. Internal continuous assessment portfolios, reviewed integrated summative assessment tasks, and the conduct of the ISET. Subsequently, Umalusi audited the state of readiness of the system to conduct, administer, and manage the examinations. During the examination writing and marking phases, Umalusi monitored a selection of examination centers, participated in marking guidelines standardization meetings in sampled subjects, conducted verification of quality of marking at selected marking centers based on sampled scripts, and verified the quality of marking in sampled subjects. Post the marking processes, the marks achieved by learners were submitted to Umalusi for standardization purposes. All these processes were conducted for private and public assessment bodies. This clearly signals that Umalusi is entrusted with a very important task task of assuring the quality of the entire value chain of the national examination process. That is why, on the occasion of the official opening of this Tuton Fundo building on 5 September 2023, the Minister of Basic Education, Me-Njim Checha, remarked as follows, and I quote him: "Members of the Umalusi Council bear a significant responsibility, guided by the legal frameworks, to consistently prioritize the organization's mission. Their decisions are pivotal in upholding the quality of education in South Africa. I am optimistic that the Council's future endeavors will further elevate our standards and enrich our educational strategies." Close quotation. This year, Umalusi had the privilege of performing standardization processes under the observation of officials from the Examinations Council of Zambia, ECZ. The colleagues from ECZ spent the whole week observing carefully how Umalusi conducts its standardization process relative to their approach, which is called grading. In their system, they talk about grading. Their attendance of our meetings affirmed Umalusi's publicly stated position that standardization processes are open to the scrutiny of peers on the continent and across the world. Nationally, the process was observed by senior officials representing the following organizations: Universities South Africa, USF; the South African Qualifications Authority, SACAI; the South African Council for Educators, SACE; the South African Democratic Union, SATU; National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, NAPTOSA; South African Public Colleges Organization, SAPCO; and the South African Onderwys INI, SAOU. For Umalusi, the attendance of standardization meetings by observers from different stakeholder organizations gives credibility to the process. Regrettably, other stakeholders, such as the National Teachers Union, NATU, was inadvertently omitted from these important national processes. We apologize for the omission and will ensure the correction of this in future. The foregoing quality assurance processes were conducted to serve the best interest of over 1,150,000 candidates. Of that number, the NSC accounts for nearly 920,000 candidates, or 80%. The remaining 20% of the candidates are distributed across the NCV levels 2 to 4, NATED N2 to N3, and GET examinations. The specifics will be given by Professor Balim in the approval statement. During the State of Readiness media briefing, Umalusi did highlight load shedding, community protests, and cheating as some of the factors that posed a risk to the smooth running of the examinations. We are happy to report that all assessment bodies heeded the advice given to make alternative arrangements for the supply of power during the writing of examinations to mitigate the effects of load shedding. Regarding community protests, the reports we have received show that there were no widespread cases of community protests that may have prevented candidates from writing the examinations. We would like to thank the South African public for heeding the call to protect the delicate processes that our learners have to go through during the examination phase. It is our belief that the fairest thing to do for the young people of our country is to create a conducive environment for them to demonstrate their true educational potential through the examination process. Umalusi appreciates the efforts of all the 4 assessment bodies for ensuring that candidates were shielded from all forms of hindrances. That gives the assurance that there was no compromise to the 2023 end-of-year national examinations integrity and credibility. Program Director, as I conclude, I would like to highlight some areas that are a concern to Umalusi. Firstly, we have previously cautioned members of the public against registering to write the examinations at unaccredited private centers or institutions. We continue to urge the public to visit the Umalusi website, and I repeat it again, www.umalusi.org.za, to access a list of all private institutions accredited to offer any Umalusi associated qualifications. You'll find useful information to assist you to verify if an independent school or a private college is accredited before you can register with it. Alternatively, you can call us on 012-349-1510 and press the relevant option. I repeat, 012-349-1510. It is crucially important for us all not to allow unregistered and unaccredited institutions to thrive at the expense of unsuspecting candidates. The second area of concern relates to printing errors or poor print quality in some of the question papers, for which I would like to cite the following examples. There was an omission of a subscript on the formula of an organic compound in question 2.2, 3 marks, of Physical Sciences, Paper 2 of the Department of Basic Education. In the Northwest Province, the same Physical Sciences, Paper 2 had missing grid lines in question 3.5, 6 marks. The 3 civil technology specializations, civil service, construction and woodworking, in both the English and Afrikaans versions, had major printing errors in Limpopo. The poor print quality in the civil services specialization affected questions worth 60 marks in the English version and 62 marks in the Afrikaans version. In construction, questions worth 31 marks in the English version and 14 marks in the Afrikaans version were affected. The marks affected in the woodworking specialization were 22 and 26 for English and Afrikaans, respectively. Aside from printing quality, we would like to raise translation quality as something that needs careful attention. Due to poor quality of translation from English to Afrikaans, candidates could not respond to questions 325 and 326, worth 3 marks, in the Afrikaans version of Geography Paper 1 of the Department of Basic Education. Thirdly, it is regrettable that one of the questions in the Mathematical Literacy Paper 1 of the Department of Basic Education naively used the words mandatory Palestine. This was caused by the examiners and moderators being unaware of the political connotations of the words. Umalusi appreciates the fact that the DBE, Department of Basic Education, issued an apology in this regard. Similarly, question 513, 2 marks in the Mandarin Paper 1, that was administered by the Independent Examinations Board, IEB, was found to be culturally exclusive in that it referred to a unit of measure that is used in China, but not in Taiwan or Hong Kong. Equally concerning is the fact that 64 candidates who wrote isiZulu, first additional language, paper 2 under the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, SACAI, had not been informed that the new poems and short stories would be introduced for the November 2023 examinations. Consequently, the candidates had been prepared for the examinations based on outdated set works. To mitigate the possible impact of the above errors on performance of candidates, the questions concerned were excluded from the marking process and the marks achieved upscaled using conversion tables. Notwithstanding that, Umalusi urges all role players to put in place stringent measures to prevent the recurrence of errors like these that I've referred to. This is because being fair to candidates means, among other things, being able to foresee and address any factor that may result in candidates performing poorly due to no faults of their own. Umalusi is concerned about previous cases of irregularities that remain unresolved to date. We urge the assessment bodies concerned to give this matter the agency that it deserves. Whilst there may be a reduction in the number of reported cases of group copying, Umalusi is seriously concerned about the group copying cases that have been detected by the DBE in 2023, which involves 945 national senior certificate candidates. These cases are not yet resolved because the numbers are still being verified. Of the total 763 cases, which is 80.7%, were detected in KwaZulu-Natal, and 164 cases, which constitute 17.7%, were detected in Mpumalanga. Professor Balim will explain in the approval statement how cases of this nature are dealt with. Umalusi is extremely encouraged by the fact that there were no detected cases of paper leakages. No papers were leaked in these examinations. And we say the examinations have therefore not been compromised in terms of their credibility and integrity. We are very grateful to all role players for tightening up the entire value chain, including the work done by the State Security Agency in relation to the places where question papers were printed, packaged, and stored. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. Thanks for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO. We will now move on to the approval statement, which will be read by Professor Yunus Balim. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Ndiki, and thank you to the CEO for that initial statement. I want to,
Sorry.
I guess they'll all hear me.
Should I move? Thank you. This I should move then.
Okay.
Sorry, Prof.
Maybe easier if I moved.
Or move the mics.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And this one goes like this. Yeah, thanks.
All okay?
Everybody happy? Okay.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone, and may I acknowledge the CEO of Umalusi, Dr. Mafura Kometsi, Umalusi senior management and staff, the representatives of the examining authorities in the room, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. The GENFETCO Act that Dr. Rakometsi referred to earlier assigns to Umalusi a range of powers and functions, including approval of the publication of the results of learners if the council, that is the Umalusi Council, is satisfied that the assessment body or the education institution has conducted the assessment free from any irregularity that may jeopardize the integrity of the assessment outcomes, has complied with the requirements prescribed by the Council for conducting assessments, has applied the standards prescribed by the Council with which a learner is required to comply in order to obtain a certificate, and has complied with every other condition determined by the Council. In respect of the examination standards, the Assessment Standards Committee of the Umalusi Council held its meetings between the 19th of December 2023 and the 5th of January 2024 to standardize the 2023 end-of-year national examination results. The ASC, that's the Assessment Standards Committee, conducted a careful analysis of the results for each of the 511 subjects spread across 4 assessment bodies and qualifications, and that broke down into 151 subjects for the NSC, 264 for the National Certificate Vocational, 56 subjects for the N2 and N3 qualifications, and 40 for the GETC Adult Basic Education and Training qualification. The ASC applied their minds to arrive at standardization's decisions. The process is detailed and rigorous and is guided by standardization principles, which are supported by statistical and narrative reports. The standardization principles are a matter of public knowledge, and I will not speak to their detail. If anyone is interested in the standardization principles, please approach Umalusi to request a copy. The final standardization decisions were presented for consideration of the Executive Committee of the Umalusi Council during its meetings held on the 9th and 12th of January 2024 to approve the release of the results. The standardization and approval processes are conducted to safeguard the integrity and credibility of all the results presented. I will now present the approval decisions of Exco of Council for each of the assessment bodies. I will start with the results for the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, SACAI, move on to the Independent Examinations Board, the IEB, followed by the Department of Education and Training, and then conclude with the results of the Department of Basic Education. Ladies and gentlemen, the statements I'm reading are fairly detailed, and I'm sorry that I'm going to be a little bit pedantic, but I have to go through this process. The SACAI, starting with SACAI, SACAI is one of the 2 private assessment bodies accredited by Umalusi. SACAI has for the 2nd year in succession conducted and managed the 2023 examinations as a fully accredited assessment body after Umalusi granted it full accreditation status to assess the General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Education and Training, and the National Senior Certificate, NSC, with effect from 1st of October 2022. So starting with the GETC ABET standardization decisions, the SACAI administered the examinations to 257 candidates at 26 examination centers. This represents a decrease of 117 candidates, or 31.3% from last year's total of 374 candidates. Concerning standardization decisions, all the learning areas had their results accepted as raw results. This was also the case in 2022. I will make a point about accepting raw results a little later. The details of the accreditation decisions are in the document that will be circulated to all of you a little later. Can I then turn to the approval statement for the release of the GETC ABET results from SACAI? And this is as it reads: having studied all the evidence presented, the Executive Committee of Umalusi Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute policy for GETC ABET external examinations. There were no systemic irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Basic Education and Training examinations administered by the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. Exco of Council approves the release of the Sakai November 2023 GETC ABET examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the Sakai is required to nullify the results of the candidates implicated in irregularities. Umalusi emphasizes the importance of submitting data sets for standardization and resulting within the stipulated timeframes. The Sakai is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. Exco of Council commends the Sakai for conducting a successful examination. Turning now to the National Senior Certificate Standardization for Sakai, the Sakai administered the NSC examinations in 25 subjects to 5,826 candidates at 103 examination centers. Compared to 2022, Sakai saw a candidate increase of 874 or 17.7% in 2023. After considering all the evidence available at the time of standardization of the results, the ASC arrived at the following decisions. Raw marks were accepted for 14 subjects, or 56% of the group. Results in 7 subjects were adjusted mainly upwards, and the results in the remaining 4 subjects were adjusted mainly downwards. That really says that 56%, as I said, of the raw marks that Sakai presented were accepted. Moving from 2022 to 2023, there were no significant changes in the directions of adjustment made to Sakai examinations. Since some stakeholders may be interested to know the actual standardization decisions per subject, you will find in the document that was given to you a tabulation of the standardization decisions for each of the specific subjects, whether the raw mark was accepted, whether the adjustment was mainly upward, or whether the adjustment was mainly downward. And I'd now like to move to the approval statement for the release of the NSC results for Sakai. It reads as follows. Having studied all the evidence presented, Exco of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the National Senior Certificate examinations. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 National Senior Certificate examinations administered by the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute. Exco of Council therefore approves the release of the Sakai November 2023 National Senior Certificate examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the Sakai is required to nullify the results of the candidates implicated in the irregularities. Umalusi is concerned about Sakai's failure to inform candidates about the change in the set works for isiZulu, first additional language, paper 2, involving poems and short stories. Furthermore, Umalusi emphasizes the importance of submitting data sets for standardization and resulting within the specified timeframes. The Sakai is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and submit an improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. Again, Exco of Council commends the Sakai for conducting a successful examination. I turn now to the standardization and approval decisions for the Independent Examinations Board, and starting with the GETC ABET standardization decisions for the IEB. The IEB's 2023 GETC ABET examinations were written by 585 candidates at 70 examination centers. This represents an increase of 25.3%, or 118 candidates from last year's 467 who wrote at 58 centers. The results of the 7 learning areas were standardized as follows. Raw marks were accepted for 4 of the learning areas. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 1 of the learning areas, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 1 of the learning areas, and mainly upward adjustments were made in 2 of the learning areas. Again, the details are on the sheet that you will receive. I turn to the approval statement for the release of GETC ABET results from IEB. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the IEB policy on the conduct, administration and management of examinations. There were no irregularities reported that might have compromised the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 GETC ABET examinations administered by the IEB. EXCO of Council approves the release of the IEB November 2023 GETC ABET examination results. The IEB is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and submit the improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the IEB for conducting a successful examination. I turn now to the National Senior Certificate Standardization decisions for the IEB. A total of 15,186 candidates, of which 13,968 were full-time and 1,218 were part-time, wrote the NSC examinations at 275 examination centers under the IEB in 2023. Compared to 2022, the candidature increased by 1,650 candidates, or 12.2%, while the number of examination centers increased by 3. IEB presented 60 subjects for standardization, and after consideration of the available evidence, raw marks were accepted for 48 of those subjects, which is 80%. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 12 subjects, that is 20%, and no subject was adjusted downwards. There are 2 noteworthy points from the figures that you will see when you get the document. The first is that for the first time since 2019, no subject was adjusted downwards. That's an important moment. The second point is that the number of subjects for which raw marks were accepted has been steadily increasing since 2021. And again, the detail of each of the 60 subjects will be available for you in the document that you will receive. If I can then read the approval statement for the release of the NSC results for the IEB. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the National Senior Certificate examinations. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 National Senior Certificate examinations administered by the Independent Examinations Board. EXCO of Council approves the release of the IEB November 2023 National Senior Certificate examination results. In respect of the identified irregularities, the IEB is required to nullify the results of candidates implicated in irregularities. The IEB is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit an improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. Exco of Council commends the IEB for conducting a successful examination. I now turn to the standardization and approval decisions for the DHET. This section of the approval statements focuses on 3 sets of results of the examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. These are the General Education and Training Certificate, Adult Basic Education and Training, National Certificate Vocational, or what is called the NCV, levels 2 to level 4, and the NATED Report 190/191 N2 and N3 examinations. I'm going to start with the GETC ABET standardizations decision for the DHET. In 2023, the number of candidates who wrote the examinations increased by 3.4% to 38,022 candidates, in comparison with the 36,742 candidates who wrote in 2022. The DHET presented results in 26 learning areas, and the following standardization decisions were made. Raw marks were accepted in 11 learning areas. 8 learning areas were adjusted mainly upwards, and 7 learning areas were adjusted mainly downwards. The approval, if I now turn to the approval statement for the release of the GETC ABET results for the DHET, having studied all the evidence presented, Exco of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration and management of the examinations of colleges established, declared or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act of 2006. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 GETC ABET examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. Exco of Council therefore approves the release of the DHET November 2023 GETC ABET examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the DHET is required to block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. Notwithstanding the evidence of improvements, Umalusi remains concerned, as in November 2022, about the high number of reported irregularities. The DHET is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit the improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. Exco of Council commends the DHET for conducting a successful examination. I now turn to the NCV, National Certificate Vocational Levels 2 to 4 standardizations decisions. The 2023 NCV Levels 2 to 4 examinations were written at 255 examination centers by 133,718 candidates compared to the 164,898 candidates that were registered to write the examinations. This represents an absenteeism rate of 18.9%, or 31,180 candidates who didn't turn up to write the exams. Because of the introduction of 3 new subjects in 2023, and these were basic principles of computer programming and computer literacy, electronics and digital concepts for robotics, and a subject called Robotics Fundamentals. A total of 264 instructional offerings were submitted for standardizations last year. The standardization decisions taken are that Raw marks were accepted for 170 of those subjects, or 64.5%. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 57 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made for 37 subjects. The number of subjects for which raw marks were accepted has increased to 170 this year from 146 in 2022. This is an increase of 16.4%, or 24 subjects. And the reason we focus on raw scores that are accepted is that a year-on-year increase in the number of subject results for which raw marks are accepted is a sign of a maturing system. In other words, the results that are presented with so much integrity and confidence in the results obtained that the Assessment Standards Committee is satisfied that these marks do not need adjustment. And that is, as we say, a sign of a maturing system that is better able to regulate itself. And this, of course, is highly commendable. If I can read the approval statement for the release of the NCV results for the DHET, having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the examination of colleges, established, declared, or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 National Certificate Vocational examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. EXCO of Council therefore approves the release of the DHET November 2023 NCV Level 2 to Level 4 examination results. The DHET is required to, in respect of identified irregularities, block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. To block the results of candidates and centers that fail to comply with the ICAS and ISAT requirements, pending the outcomes of further investigations by the DHET and verification by Umalusi. Address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and submit the improvement plan by 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the DHET for conducting a successful examination and recommends that the DHET takes the necessary step to ensure the continued integrity of the National Certificate Vocational qualification. If I now turn to the N2 and N3 standardization decisions for the DHET, and I want to use this opportunity to remind the public that in terms of the Government Gazette signed by the Minister of Higher Education and Training on the 25th of August 2023, the last opportunity for registering for the NATED Report 191 N1 to N3 programs was the 31st of December 2023. As from the 1st of January 2024, the N1 and N3 programs have entered a phase-out period. The details of this phase-out process are available from the Department of Higher Education and Training if anybody is interested. This year's N2, N3 examinations were written by 58,190 candidates, 31,332 for the N2 and 26,858 for the N3. This was written at 429 examination centers. Considering that 68,916 candidates were enrolled, which is an expression of intention to write, the actual number of candidates who eventually wrote represents an absenteeism rate of 15.6%, or 10,726 candidates. Of the 57 instructional offerings that were submitted by the DHET for standardization, Umalusi did not standardize motor trade theory N2. The reason is that the DHET administered an incorrect question paper to 850 candidates who wrote at 98 out of the 100 examination centers. It was only candidates at one center each in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal who wrote the correct version of the question paper. Consequently, the DHET has arranged for this instructional offering to be rewritten on the 6th of February 2024. Thereafter, the results will be submitted to Umalusi for standardization and approval. The following decisions were taken for the 56 instructional offerings that were standardized. Raw marks were accepted for 32 of the subjects. Mainly upward adjustment was made in 13 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 11 subjects. And of course, one subject was not standardized. I'll then read the approval statement for the release of the N2 and N3 results for the DHET. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the national policy pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the examination of colleges, established, declared, or registered in terms of the Continuing Education and Training Act. The irregularities identified during writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 NATED Report 190-191 Engineering Studies N2 and N3 examinations administered by the Department of Higher Education and Training. EXCO of Council therefore approves the release of the DHET November 2023 NATED N2 and N3 examination results. The DHET is required to, in respect of identified irregularities, block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who were implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of further DHET investigations and verification by Umalusi. They are required to nullify the November 2023 Motor Trade Theory N2 examination results. They must also block the results of candidates and centers that fail to comply with the ICAS requirements, pending the outcome of further investigations by the DHET and verification by Umalusi. They must develop a strategy to address the recurring irregularities that emanate mainly from private colleges and report on progress to Umalusi. Submit a report on the action taken against officials implicated in irregularities and address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and submit the improvement plan by 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the DHET for conducting a successful examination. In this final section of the statement, we look at the National Senior Certificate Examination results from the Department of Basic Education. And this, considering the standardization decisions, the DBE administered in 2023 and in the 2023 NSC examinations to 898,520 candidates. Of this number, 717,377 candidates were full-time, while around 181,000 candidates were part-time. In comparison with last year's total of 921,879 candidates, 2023 recorded a decrease of 3%, or around 23,000 candidates. The examination was written at 6,889 centers, and examination scripts were marked at 190 marking centers. The DBE presented a total of 66 subject results for standardization, and after careful consideration of the narrative and statistical evidence available, the Assessment Standards Committee made the following decisions. Raw marks were accepted for 49 subjects. That is about 74.2%. Mainly upward adjustments were made in 6 subjects, and mainly downward adjustments were made in 11 subjects. These figures, and the figures that you will see on the table, show an upward trend in the number of subjects for which raw marks were accepted over the last 3 years. Importantly, the number of subjects for which marks were adjusted mainly upward decreased significantly from 16 in 2022 to 6 in 2023. As mentioned, this is a signal of a maturing system. Again, there's a very long list of subjects and standardization decisions, adjustment decisions that you will find in the document that will be handed to you. If I can then read the approval statement for the release of the NSC results presented by the Department of Basic Education. Having studied all the evidence presented, EXCO of Council concluded that the examinations were administered largely in accordance with the regulations pertaining to the conduct, administration, and management of the National Senior Certificate examinations. The irregularities identified during the writing and marking of the examinations were not systemic, and therefore did not compromise the overall credibility and integrity of the November 2023 National Senior Certificate examinations administered by the Department of Basic Education. EXCO Council therefore approves the release of the DBE November 2023 Senior Certificate examination results. In respect of identified irregularities, the DBE is required to block the results of all candidates implicated in irregularities, including the candidates who are implicated in the alleged acts of dishonesty, pending the outcome of the DBE investigations and verification by Umalusi. Umalusi is concerned about the recurring instances of printing and packaging errors in question papers and the ongoing practice of group copy. The DBE is required to address the directives for compliance and improvement highlighted in the Quality Assurance of Assessment report and to submit an improvement plan by the 15th of March 2024. EXCO of Council commends the DBE for conducting a successful examination on such a large scale. I think it is important and necessary at this point to conclude this section by reminding the public about a recent Umalusi study titled International Benchmarking of the National Senior Certificate. The study was conducted by ECTIS, formerly known as the UK NARIC, on behalf of Umalusi, and what it did was benchmark the National Senior Certificate against 5 international qualifications. These were the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, or some of you may know this as the IB program, the Kenyan Certificate of Secondary Education, the New South Wales Higher School Certificate, the Zimbabwean Forms 5 to 6 Advanced Level, and Cambridge Assessment International Education AS and A levels. The overall conclusion of the study is that the NSC provides its holders with an internationally comparable level of education. The full report, if you're interested, is accessible on the Umalusi website. To turn then to the overall picture of 2023 end-of-year examinations. Based on the foregoing information, the overall picture for 2023 end-of-year national examination is that the examinations were written by 1,150,304 candidates, with the NSC candidates contributing 80% towards that total. The finer details are of course provided in the table which you will find in your document. And this presents the qualifications offered by the DBE, the DHET, IEB and SACAI, together with the number of candidates in each group. Of the 510 subjects resulted that were presented for standardization, Raw marks were accepted in 335 of those. That's 66% of the subjects. Generally, upward adjustments were made in 84 or 16%, and generally downward adjustments were made in 91 or 18% of the subjects resulted. Umalusi has noted specific issues that require attention of the relevant assessment bodies. Whereas these issues will be included in the assessment body's specific composite reports, it is worth mentioning that a high absenteeism rate has once again been noted in some of the subjects associated with the GETC examinations. Similarly, this qualification continues to record a high failure rate. This raises the question about the levels of support that candidates find in their learning and examination preparation experiences. In conclusion then, Umalusi congratulates all the assessment bodies for successfully conducting and managing the 2023 end-of-year examinations. As evidenced by the numbers presented, the examination system is large and complex. It's not an easy task to ensure that each one of the over 1.15 million candidates across the length and breadth of South Africa receives the correct examination paper at the right time and in the correct venue. That individual scripts are collected and marked, that marks are verified and then transferred onto the computer system and submitted to Umalusi for standardization purposes. That standardization decisions are implemented on the system and that learners are resulted in a timely manner. All this done with proper attention to the integrity of the process. This is certainly most deserving of our commendation. I wish to thank all the members of the Assessment Standards Committee under the chairpersonship of Professor Loyiso Jita and his deputy, Professor Mabokang Monapule Mapisela, who worked tirelessly to ensure delivery of credible outcomes. This committee of 15 members, constituted by some of the finest minds drawn from various universities and research institutes in South Africa, is always willing to sacrifice valuable time during the festive season to ensure that the best outcome for the South African learners. I extend words of appreciation to my colleagues in Exco of Council for investing time to consider the reports presented by the four assessment bodies and Umalusi, which led to the approval of the 8 sets of results. I also thank the CEO of Umalusi, Dr. Rakometsi, his management team and staff for the excellent work that they do behind the scenes. The CEO and his team work tirelessly and under extreme time pressure to deliver the best for the country. Their commitment has ensured that South Africa's education system is anchored in quality, credibility and integrity. Umalusi congratulates all the learners who have succeeded in 2023 examinations. Words of appreciation are also due to their teachers, their parents, their guardians, and all those who have supported the learners throughout their journey, including the maintenance and cleaning staff at our schools and colleges, the taxi drivers, and the other public and private transport drivers who take care in bringing our learners to school, and the community members who show concern for the learning of our children. We thank all role players for ushering the class of 2023 to this important day. To those learners who have not succeeded, there is another chance for you in this year's examinations. So please do not give up, work harder, and you will do better this year. I wish you all the best for 2024, and I thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Professor Palim. Thanks for reading the statement. Colleagues, we have now reached a stage where we'll open the floor for you to interact with both Professor Palim and Dr. Mafura Kometi on the issues that they have raised up to this point. In terms of how we will do this, you put your hand up, and if you're seated next to one of these mics, you just turn it on. If it's red, it means you are the first one to speak. If it's green, it means you are the second or third in line. We also have this additional microphone here. Yeah,